And we're back with some more cooking tips. Today we're going to dive into one of my personal favorites. We're going to tackle what I consider to be the simplest yet most flavorful way of making pork back ribs. One of the first things you need to do when you're dealing with making pork ribs, either if you're baking them or putting them on the barbecue or smoker, is you need to prepare the meat. You need to remove what's called the membrane. The membrane is this sort of nasty piece that's along the backside of the ribs that when cooked, it kind of has the texture of like cooked wax paper covered in grease. And it's not something that you really want, especially if you're sharing your delicious meal with somebody else. It's not going to hurt you. You can totally eat it. It's just not particularly great. So we've got an easy way to show you how to get rid of it. The simplest thing to do is to take a paper towel, flip your ribs over. Today we're doing 2 racks and we're going to show you some fun special flavor techniques to differentiate them. So what you want to do is take either a fork or a knife, whatever you're more comfortable with, and pry into the back portion of one of your ribs just to get things started. And you want to peel up just this little layer here where you can find a piece of this membrane skin. You see that coming up there? So you start to get a little bit of lift on this skin right here. And then what you want to do, because it's very slippery, is you take your paper towel, grab hold of that, and then that makes it a lot easier for you to lift and peel it all the way back. Perfect. And then you want to get rid of that. And we'll do the other rack. Of course, I'm having a hell of a time with it. So now that you've removed the membrane, you're ready to start seasoning. It's that simple. We don't need any binders or anything to make the seasoning stick to the ribs. They're a very wet meat to begin with. And the rub we're using today is from our Bonelli's line of salts and spices. It's our simply the best pork and poultry rub. And it just is. And one of the things I like to do is I'll take this off the tray that I was using to pull the membrane and put them on the larger cutting board to help with the mess. And I'll start on seasoning the back, which doesn't need a lot of seasoning, to be honest with you. And what I do is I overlap the ribs, because then that way any of the seasoning that I miss on the top rack will fall onto the bottom rack. And waste not, want not, especially when you're using something as delicious as this. So we're just going to start with a dusting on the back. And the sides, of course, because these are pretty thick ribs. So we want to season the side very nicely. Rub it in. And you can see how amazingly our Simply the Best pork and poultry rub sticks to the meat. And we just give it a nice rub in. It's called a rub after all. And then we're just going to switch. Well, I'll get a little bit more on here. We're going to switch that up and we're going to overlap this one, and we'll get the side of this. And again, not too much on the back, just enough for flavor. There's not a lot of meat on the back of your ribs, so you don't want to waste a lot of your seasoning because you're not going to taste it. Now we go to the other side. All right, this is where all the meat is and the fun. First off, you want to get that end cap right there. Sprinkle some right on there. And then just along the way, Give it a nice, generous helping. You can see already it's going to give it that golden color as soon as we start cooking this. Okay, and we're ready to go. We're going to be cooking our ribs today using what's called the 3-2-1 method. And simply put, that means 3 hours on the smoker or grill, 2 hours wrapped, and you can do that back out on the grill or in the oven like we did with our brisket, and then another hour back out on the smoker or grill. It's easier than it sounds. So we've got our ribs ready. We've got our rack set to the top level because I like to keep things away from the flame if possible without being so close to the flame as to have that intense heat the entire time. It helps give that smoky flavor for a longer period of time and penetrate deeper into that smoke and give you that gorgeous smoke ring that we all love. We're using our Traeger pellet smoker today, but again, we could just as simply be using our grill over there, wrap up a foil package of wood chips like we showed you with our brisket. But we're going to be on the top rack now. There's a trick that I want to show you right now that is important to keeping the juiciness of your ribs. When you go to put your ribs on, we're going to place them on the top rack. Once we place them, we want to try and press the ends in together. And what that does is it compresses the meat together, keeps it thicker on in between each rib, because you can accordion that out. Look how long that goes. But we want to press that in, keep all that nice and tight so that it stays thicker and juicier. And then we just close our lid for 3 hours. We've got our temperature set for 225, and on this model, we've got a super smoke setting, which is going to keep reigniting and giving us more smoke as it goes along. So now we're going to go inside and we're going to get ready for when it comes time to wrap after 3 hours of being on the smoker. We've got some special flavors. We're going to do 2 different styles and it's going to turn out amazing. And I'm going to show you some tricks that you're just going to love. Using our 3-2-1 method, when it comes time for the 2, which is our wrapping time, we're going to wrap each rack of ribs individually. And when doing that, that's an awesome opportunity to add some flavor to your ribs. You can use your favorite barbecue sauce if you like, or you can do something simple as adding maple syrup or honey. We've come up with a few different things that we really enjoy. And I'm going to show you one of them right now. And it's as simple as honey, cilantro, and your favorite hot peppers, if you like things hot. We've got this hot pepper concoction that my lovely girlfriend makes, and we put it on everything, and you can see we've got a bowl with just a bit left, and we're going to utilize some of that in our dish. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with our honey. So we've got this honey that we bought from a local farm, and it's a really good wildflower honey that really shouldn't be used for a dish like this because it's kind of too much. It's too good, but it's all we have right now. So we're going to just take some honey and make a mess. And we're just going to add a bunch into a bowl here. So now we're going to take our cilantro or coriander, depending on what part of the world you live in. And we're just going to chop a bunch off, and we're just going to work with this. And then we want to finely chop it. So you want to curl your fingers like this so you don't lose a finger. I've done it and it sucks. Now you want to go through the process of chopping your cilantro very finely. Okay, that's pretty good. So now we're going to add that to our honey. And now we're going to add in a teaspoon or so, depends on how hot you like things, of our hot pepper mix. We're going with 2.5 teaspoons. And then we just want to mix it all together. Now we're just going to let that sit for a while, and the reason that we're making it early, as soon as we had put on our ribs, is because we want these flavors to blend together so that when we go to put them on the ribs, it's going to be like a nice infused sauce. We've got 2.5 hours because we just put the ribs on, and this took us a couple of minutes to get put together. So we've got, this is going to sit for 2.5 hours, and we'll show you what we're going to do when it comes time to wrap, which will by the magic of editing, be about 20 seconds from now. We're just about ready to take our ribs off the smoker, but we want to get our wrap prepared. And what I always like to do is I always like to start with an onion. We're just going to prepare this real quick by chopping it into small pieces. So we're going to break it up into little pieces here. We've got our onion ready. Now we're going to get our wraps ready by taking a couple of pieces of tin foil, about the length of your rack of ribs, and then a little bit more because you want to fully wrap them and nice and tight. Oh, that was stupid. We have 2 racks, so we're just going to slice 2. We're going to take half our chopped onions. We're going to spread it along the center where our rack of ribs is going to lay. And now comes our delicious mix that we made of honey, cilantro, and hot peppers. And again, you don't have to add hot peppers. That's a personal choice. So we're going to just drizzle right down the middle, a nice helping. Okay, and we're going to save more of that because there's more to come. Actually, we're going to slide this one to the side and work on our next one. So we're going to lay it out the same way. Take the rest of our onions and sprinkle them all on down the middle. And for this rack, we decided, and by we I mean she, decided that we're going to use our own homemade Carolina mustard barbecue sauce. And you never want to put cold barbecue sauce on any of your meats. You always want to warm it up. So we've been warming it up in the saucepan. Same thing, we're going to drizzle a helping right down the center of our foil. And we've got a bit more to brush on in a bit. So we'll just set that aside. And now we're going to go get our ribs. Now I know what you're saying. You've taken your ribs off the barbecue and you're saying, but Chris, they look so delicious already. Why do I have to wait another 3 hours? Trust me, once you do this, you're going to want to find my phone number to call me up and say thank you for telling me to wait. So we're going to take one rack and we're going to pick them up. We're going to face down, the meat side down, on our concoction of whatever you've chosen. I love onions, so I always start with onions. You can use barbecue sauce. You can use store-bought barbecue sauce. You can use whatever you want. Apple cider is a great one. Maple syrup is another great one that we use, or just straight up honey. What we've done sometimes is, like we mixed our honey and cilantro, we will mix honey and apple juice, or maple syrup and apple juice. The combinations go together so great, especially when it comes to pork. The sweetness brings out the sweetness, the inherent sweetness already in the pork. This piece right here, I'm dying to tear off and eat it, but I'm going to wait. So now all we have to do is wrap. And you want a good sized piece of foil. If you've got a smaller roll of foil, just double up your roll so that it becomes a wider piece. You want to be able to fully wrap over your ribs with your foil. And be careful, because sometimes as your ribs have been cooking, you'll end up with some bony spikes, and you don't want to puncture your foil as you're wrapping. So be very careful. Find the end, fold that over as well. And then find the end on this side, fold that over. Now we're going to set this one aside. We're going to bring in our amazing honey, cilantro, and peppers. And we're going to grab our other rack, again, face down, and we just wrap. Being careful not to spike the foil. We've done the 3 portion of our 3-to-1 method. Now comes the 2 portion, the 2-hour portion of wrapping our ribs. Now you can put them back out on your grill, on your smoker if you wish. We're using a pellet smoker, so as I said in my brisket video, I don't think it's cost effective to waste the pellets when they're not getting the benefit of the smoke, when we've got a perfectly good gas oven right here that we can set to the temperature we want and let it go for 2 hours. So that's what we're going to do. 250 for 2 hours. Don't touch them. Don't open them. Let them soak. This is almost like a braising process because we've used a liquid, and that's going to help steam them, loosen up that meat, and then when we go back on the grill for that last hour, it's going to get the extra kiss of the smoke, and we're going to baste every 10 to 15 minutes of whatever concoction we've decided. So let's get to it.
2 hours later.
It's been 2 hours, so now we're going to pull the ribs from the oven and we're going to put them back out on the smoker. It's kind of dark out, so we're going to be operating with some limited light, but let's see how they look. Got our oven mitts because it's going to be hot. All right. Oh, they smell wonderful. Okay, we're just going to bring one at a time over and have a look at them. Ooh, really hot. And you want to be careful at this stage because look at how they're sagging. This braising process in the wrap really is where you get that fall off the bone from your ribs. So when you're handling the wrapped portion or putting them back on the grill, you want to give them lots of support so they don't fall apart on you. Let's have a look. Oh yeah. Yeah, we've got a lot of falling apart going on right here. And you want to be careful because there's probably going to be a lot of liquid, so you don't want to have it all spill out on you. Because you've got whatever you decided to braise your ribs in, as well as the continued humidity and juices that are flowing out of the meat. But these just look amazing. And you can tell when the meat has peeled back from your bones like this, that you're getting that fall off the bone. Perfection. So now we want to put them back out on the grill, and we're going to mop them every 10 to 15 minutes for the last hour of our cooking process. So we're back out on our smoker. We've got it set to 225 on super smoke because why not? And what I recommend with this process, as I was saying in the kitchen, you want to be careful that your ribs aren't going to fall apart on you as you transfer them back onto the grill. So a long pair of tongs will help you get the ribs all the way in and support them while you're putting them back on. So we'll start with our first rack here. We're going to lift it a little bit, slide those tongs as far as we can, and we want to go bone side down again. And this one here, you want to make note of what flavors you've done, so when you're mopping it, you know which ones you've got. This one's our honey, cilantro, and peppers. And then with this one, with our Carolina barbecue sauce, we're going to go down on the bottom rack. It's going to make it easier for us to baste our ribs. So again, a lot of support, bone side down, and right in there. Ten minutes, so we're going to do our first basting. And when we're doing this, and especially with sugary sauces, when you're smoking them and cooking them back on the grill, this is where you can tighten up that sauce and make it more of a glaze that really sticks to the ribs. And when you do it every 10 to 15 minutes for that last hour, you're adding layers and layers of flavor. So we're going to start with our honey, cilantro, and peppers. And we're just going to mop this. You can see it glistening. This is so good. So now we're going to do our Carolina barbecue sauce on the other rack. afternoon and you've got 6 hours to kill and you've got some meat in your fridge, this is how you do it. So we've got our 2 racks of ribs here, both of them dry seasoned with our Benelio's Simply the Best pork and poultry rub, and then done with different sauces to accent that flavor, and extra smoke time at the end to soak in the smoke flavor into the wet seasoning. And now we want to have a look and watch this. We're just going to peel that apart because that's how they are right now. You can see this gorgeous smoke ring, that pink that you get right there, all that pink, that's all the smoke getting inside the meat. So we're going to try it. So good, so sweet, amazing. Oh my God. My girlfriend's behind the camera. She's going to kill me right now, but I'm going to keep eating. So you can see right here, look at how deep and penetrated, I'm going to go to this camera. Look at how deep and penetrated that smoke ring is. It's almost all the way down to the bone. So that's the smoky flavor that's going to go throughout the meat, plus our seasoning, plus our mopping of our sauces. What you can also do, what we sometimes do is, if you have some leftover of your wet seasoning, your barbecue sauce or your whatever concoction you've come up with, once you chop up your ribs and put them on a plate, use some of that. We've got some left over here on the stove. Use some of that and pour it over the ribs, so then you get some even inside the open part of the meat. This is how I do simply the best ribs that you can find anywhere. It's a very simple process. Remember, 3, 2, 1. 3 hours on the smoke or the barbecue, 2 hours wrapped with your liquid, and 1 hour back on the smoke, brushing every 10 to 15 minutes. You cannot beat this. Thanks, and I hope you enjoyed as much as I do. It was recording, right?